You're listening to Your Jewish Life, Your Way with Karen Cinnamon, the podcast that explores what it feels like to be Jewish or Jewish in 2021. On the show, we divulge all of the secrets and know-how to being confident in celebrating and living your Jewish life your way, with easy ways to embrace your mishpacha through the traditions and rituals you've been dying to learn more about, without having to compromise life's everyday hustle. So save your kvetching, because we are talking less Jewish guilt and more Jewish joy here on out. Yalla, forget about the right and wrong ways to be Jewish. It's time to create a Jewish life you love living. I love today's episode. It's the perfect show to listen to with Rosh Hashanah just around the corner, because I sat down with Liz Rueven, the food blogger and eco-Jew behind Kosher Like Me, and we talked about everything from easy Rosh Hashanah recipes to sustainable ways to decorate your home for Rosh Hashanah, to how to get in the mood for Rosh Hashanah. And because Liz Rueven's blog Kosher Like Me is all about, yes, it's about Jewish tradition and Jewish food, but it's also about the fresh flavors of local seasonal produce. We talked a lot about sustainability and how to be an eco-Jew, which I thought was really, really interesting and which I know you're going to love hearing about too. We touched on everything, like I say, from ways to get in the mood to Rosh Hashanah, for easy recipes. We talked about doable ways to green your life in the coming year, and why there are no shoulds when it comes to observing the Jewish New Year. You know, this podcast is a no shoulds zone, and we talked about that as well. No more shoulds. So it's a really great episode, not only to get some fun, easy ideas to make your home ready for Rosh Hashanah, but also how sustainability can be easy, joyful, and above all, Jewish. Welcome to the podcast, Liz. It's wonderful to have you here today.
I'm so happy to be here with you from across the pond.
Across the pond in Connecticut, is that right?
Yes, that's true.
And at the most exciting time of the year, there's just under a week left to Rosh Hashanah. We're recording this just before Rosh Hashanah 5782 or 2021. What an exciting time.
It's my favorite time of year. That idea of new beginnings, a new year, all of this always gets me kind of jazzed.
So I know you're all about the Jewish food. We're going to be talking Rosh Hashanah recipes and so much more. But do you use this time to reflect and on the year past and set intentions for the upcoming year? Are you quite reflective as well at this time of year?
I do. I think it's an opportunity that's really a gift to us as Jews, that there's a time set aside to think about what has transpired in the last year. And of course, it's been a really rough ride for many people in the last year, in the past year, really year and a half. So we have this gift of taking the time to really think and contemplate our blessings or anything that has happened, and think about how we'd like to move forward in better, happier, more conscious ways.
And do you have any intentions for the upcoming year that you'd like to share with us, or have you thought about it yet?
Well, I haven't really thought that much about it yet, other than intentions in my own kitchen, if you want to hear those.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, I really think that as Jews and as citizens of the world, we're really obligated to be as green as possible. And with the new and widely distributed reports about what's happening in our environment that I think most of us have been paying attention to, but now we've got to pay very, very close attention to these very frightening and dire reports. I think being green in the kitchen and in our homes is more pressing than ever. So, you know, if there's one intention I have, aside from other things that of course have to do with personal relationships, I would say that we need to be as green as possible in our homes and in our kitchens. Yes.
So let's talk about that in terms of Rosh Hashanah, with it coming around so early this year. How can we have, let's say, a more sustainable Rosh Hashanah, or a greener Rosh Hashanah? It's not something that's often associated with this holiday. We talk about the food and the reflections and stuff. Let's talk about how do we have a more sustainable green Rosh Hashanah?
Well, I think it's a great idea. I once wrote something, and the title was something like, if Rosh Hashanah falls at the peak of harvest season, why do we serve beige foods? So listen, my family, I would have a complete revolt in my home if I didn't serve brisket and chicken soup, whether it's with kreplach or knedlach, that's dumplings or matzah balls or whatever. So there are certain things that I will serve and my family really wants me to serve. And all of that is important because that's tradition. But I think to start with having a more green and sustainable holiday, we have to start by eating seasonally. And we have this fantastic opportunity to wander through your local farmer's market, or what do you call it in London? Is it a green
No,
market?
no, we call it farmers market too. That's one word
Okay.
we share. No, there's not that many, but we share farmers market.
Yeah, and to shop and to support your local farms and to buy things that are in season. So I always put together salads and other side dishes that reflect the season that we're in. And for the holiday, for Rosh Hashanah, if it's about new beginnings, if you're accustomed to doing certain types of dishes that don't reflect the season, it's a great opportunity to insert at least one and hopefully more that really reflects the bounty that we have at this time of year. And in addition to that, it used to be that because I was always overwhelmed by the number of dishes that would land in my sink, I would start off, let's say, with appetizers, maybe on paper plates, and maybe I would finish with paper plates for desserts, so that I could just get through the dishwashing part of the holiday. No more paper. There's no more paper being used, other than things that are compostable. And we can't really assume that everything that says compostable can be taken by your compost folks if you use a service. So you need to check that out first. But I would say if you reduce the amount of paper and you eat seasonally, you've made big strides.
So what kind of seasonal produce do you love to incorporate into the holiday menu? Give everyone some ideas.
Okay. Well, apples first. I mean, they're really omnipresent, I think, on the holiday table, especially in the Ashkenazic canon. Apples certainly have come in, even though it may be very hot in the beginning of September. Apples are coming in well, they did come in really in the beginning of in the middle of August, but things like apples and beets and carrots, um, local honey, these are things that can be incorporated in salads very, very easily. Cabbage, tomatoes. Why not serve a beautiful tomato salad? Why would you have to buy, or why would you? It's not any easier to buy packaged greens in your supermarket than it is to make a simple tomato salad. The tomatoes are, overwhelming the markets at this time of year. Corn, beautiful tomato corn salads. So what I'm advocating is, really seeing what's in the market and letting that be an inspiration for your holiday menu, instead of, let's say, we do a brisket, let's say we do a chicken soup, but potato kugel, unless your family is crazy about potato kugel, see if you can buy fresh potatoes and do some kind of a simple, roasted potato. Do a tomato salad. You could do a corn soup. So easy and so delicious. So really see what's in the market and use that as your inspiration.
I saw a beautiful recipe yesterday for Sephardic jeweled rice, which could be a great way to incorporate anything that you find at the farmer's market, and then throw in some pomegranates and some flavor, and it's such a beautiful looking dish as well.
It's always a celebration when you see that rice on the table. I love that idea. Yes.
And tell me about I love you sent me some recipe ideas earlier, and that salad with symbolic items in it.
Oh, that's one of my favorite salads. Excuse me. So I presented this salad at a food conference, at the Chazon Food Conference here in Connecticut a few years ago. And what I did was I turned to the Encyclopedia of Jewish Foods by Gil Marks, which is really I would say the most important book in my food library. It's a full encyclopedia of
link to it in the show notes if anybody wants to refer to
right.
it.
It's called the Encyclopedia of Jewish Foods by Gil Marks. And so you can look up holidays, you can look up ingredients. There's a ton of cross-referencing. So I was really excited to see under the entry for Rosh Hashanah that there are lots of foods that are associated with incorporating positive energy into your meal. And there are things that I wasn't aware of, in my with my Ashkenazic background. So this salad, which is on my website, Kosher Like Me, incorporates grated carrots, which are associated with prosperity because they look like coins.
I love that.
Yeah, beets, which are really referred to as beet greens, but let's say beets, and we grate them, and they are associated with safety. That's to say safety from our enemies, protection from our enemies. Apples, which are about the inclusion of the divine presence. Dates are symbols of beauty and strength. These are things that were all mentioned in the Talmud as symbolic foods. Pomegranate arils, which, as most people know, are associated with fertility and the love of mitzvot. And honey, of course, to sweeten the salad. It's associated with immortality and truth and all good things being sweet. And seeds in the end, which I love to put on the top of almost any salad, which is an association with plenty and fertility. So when you take a look at that salad recipe, it's just everything grated up. It's bright pink because of the beets and the carrots. Follow the directions, because if you do it in advance, you really want to keep the ingredients separated. But it's a fun conversation starter on the table because, a lot of people aren't aware that in the Jewish in the Talmud, we have all of these writings. So it's just super fun to include something like that. And it's cool and it's cooling and it's going to be hot this year.
Well, it comes in so
Hashanah.
early, doesn't it? We're all taken a bit by surprise, but hopefully with our resources and the podcast and inspiration from people like you, we're getting everybody ready in time. So we're going to talk about quick, easy ideas to make our homes ready for Rosh Hashanah. Let's start with recipes. We all love menu planning. We want to get organized. What are some easy Rosh Hashanah recipes that you're loving for this upcoming year, with it coming in a bit early this year?
Right. Well, last year I did a recipe that I was really crazy about, which was an apple compote. Simple simmer of apples with a few different ingredients, including things like cardamom and cinnamon. So a bit of a twist on the compote that you may have grown up with your grandmother serving. And then I did a layered parfait with seasoned tahini and a non-dairy yogurt and flaked halava. And I assembled all of these into a pretty glass, and I put them, if you have the room, I put them in another refrigerator, covered them all with plastic, and then pulled them out. So that was a cool dessert, which I really loved. And there was honey in there, and there was apples in there, and there were, other spices.
Immediately. I can't wait another week for that. I'm salivating.
It was a real surprise. It was a surprise to me when I worked with a company called Seed and Mill, which makes beautiful
we know Seed and Mill.
tahini and halava in New York City. And we really brainstormed very successfully on this idea. So, I would basically do that and a simple honey cake or an apple cake. I have both recipes on my blog. For honey cake, I'm not the biggest honey cake fan, but I have one that's drizzled with a lot of chocolate, so that converted me. I think it could convert any honey cake naysayer.
Oh, good.
Recipes for simple chickens that are a simple, quick roast with a little bit of honey, a little bit of olive oil, maybe some dried fruit, those kinds of things, or a brisket, both of which I have on my blog, are all great if you just use them as starting points. And then you have these cooling salads on the side. We're talking about the beginning of September. You're going to want cooling foods, in my opinion. I would serve a gazpacho too. If Yeah, my family likes gazpacho well enough, so I won't have a revolt.
Well, I'm going to be making one of your recipes. I will share it on Instagram. It looks great. It's the pomegranate and honey glazed chicken. By the way, all the recipes that Liz is mentioning, we will link all of them in the show notes. Don't you worry. You just head to the show notes page, just search for this episode, and you'll find all the links there. So don't worry about those. But I thought it'd be fun. If you try any of Liz's recipes or you're having fun listening to this podcast, just tag us on Instagram. We'd love to hear from you. And also let us know what you're doing for Rosh Hashanah and your menus, or just take a screenshot of the podcast, put it up on stories, tag us and join in the conversation. And what about decor? How do you like, again, talking about sustainability as well, it's not maybe so much about paper decorations, but what about making your home ready for Rosh Hashanah? What do you do?
Right. It's a great question. I love to go with clipping things from my yard because I have a beautiful garden. And, if I find really beautiful honey candles, for example, which I think are pretty easy to find now. I have something on my blog about table settings where it's not always about the really fancy stuff because a lot of people are making the holiday for the first time, or a lot of people are newlyweds or new at entertaining. And it's okay to have your simple white porcelain dishes and set up your candles. Maybe go with a theme. So the theme might be white because white is the color of fresh new starts. Whether you have flowers to clip at your neighbors or in your own backyard, or you can go out and buy them, make a commitment to a color, and a color may be white. Maybe you connect it to something else, like maybe you find or have a beautiful bowl that you're going to use for serving, and maybe just pull one other color from that. So what I was going to say about the candles is, in addition to having lots of candles, even if it's just late afternoon, I still love to have candles. You can also buy more than you need and pile them on some plates at the end of the tables. Use things as props. Beautiful jars of freshly sourced honey. The labels are often really cool and really beautiful. Stack them up, or give them to everyone on their plate and put a place card in front of them so that they know where to sit. And you can sort of enhance your table, even if you don't have a lot of what we call schmancy stuff. You can use props like honey jars and candles and flowers. Snip off some flowers and put a bud on the table, on the place setting. I'm not one to use a lot of china, and I never pull out the sterling, which I should do. But if you don't have
shoulds, we don't allow shoulds on the podcast.
Oh,
this is a no should zone. It's all about what sparks Jewish joy, and obviously for you, it's not your silver sterling. They shouldn't be on your table. Shouldn't.
I love that. I just wander around and I see what inspires me. And if whatever flower is blooming that week at my market or in my backyard, I'll start the table there. I do love a basic white cloth because I think it's a perfect ground for anything that comes up. I mean, when you meet that honey seller and they're actually raising bees and making honey themselves, it's a great way to support them, and it's a great way to put cool props on your table.
I love all those ideas. And using produce as decor is so fun, so colorful. Some of the fun things that I've seen around are ombre apple sort of grazing boards, honey and apple crates. So you find all the different colors from red, orange, yellow, green. You can make a gorgeous beautiful ombre board. I've seen apples also, a little bit of a fire hazard, but you may want to give it a shot, where you kind of take the tip off and you put a tea light in the top of the apple, and they can be sort of apples as tea lights. Careful with that one. But apples as sort of decor. And I love your idea of a white tablecloth, maybe simple white plates, and then an apple on each plate on top, on the setting. And also, I know we're not quite into fall. Well, we're kind of into fall by the time Rosh Hashanah comes, but like fall colors as well is really, really decorative and fun. and fresh flowers, just whatever you've got, even if you don't have a garden, whatever's, what growing wild locally, something that makes you, whatever makes you feel good. We don't, as I said earlier, there's no shoulds on this
I
podcast.
love that. And also something that I learned from someone who did a styling session with me a few years ago. She bought moss at a crafting store. Now, I don't know that, going into moss is really messy, by the way. But if you want to make a runner down the middle of your white tablecloth with moss, and it could be muslin or it could be any kind of woven material that you could buy just a few yards of, you could make that your runner. And then if you start with a lot of apples, I like the idea of abundance, because one of the themes of Rosh Hashanah is that we hope for abundance and well-being. So loads of apples piled, and tea lights. I love the idea of tea lights nestled in the apples. You don't even have to cut the apples, which are going to turn brown and look, maybe not the way you want them to, but you could also use those tea lights with the batteries.
Yeah, no, this is all good stuff. And
just give a little glow to the table. That always helps.
And if you're loving these ideas, if you do any of the ideas, make sure to DM me and Liz. We really want to see your Rosh Hashanah tables. And I mean, we're all different, but I personally connect with what Liz is saying about simple and authentic rather than getting the fancy stuff out. That resonates with me too. So I never want you to feel like you haven't got the right stuff, or your grandmother never did it this way, and you're new to Judaism and you have to buy stuff from Target or you're making it yourself or whatever it is. There's no right or wrong way to be Jewish. It's what sparks joy for you and gives you meaning, especially at this time of year.
Karen, I really love your message here, and I think it's so true. And I would add that whatever helps you to, as you said, to feel authentic and to feel relaxed, to say this table represents who we are. We're not fancy people. We don't do china and crystal, or we are. And that's a good thing. It's very, very beautiful.
Absolutely.
You have heirloom stuff and you pull it out just for certain holidays. It's all very beautiful. But I would say that my biggest tip, and I think most people know this, is to do as much as you can in advance.
Especially with it falling on a weeknight. I've been getting some DMs about that. Give us some tips how we can prep in advance.
Right. Well, I really, again, because it's going to be very warm, I would do things that can be served chilled. And I would have them, when I serve a large salad of any kind, in that bowl, if I have room in my refrigerator, I'll I'll nestle other bowls in that bowl of washed greens. I'll have the greens wrapped in very clean dishcloths. And then I'll have little bowls with all the other ingredients prepped, nestled right in that bowl. So all I do is unwrap that bowl, pull out all of the ingredients that have been prepped, and toss it. Dressing, of course, is made. I think that we'll probably serve a cold soup. So we're saving on a pot because it all happens in a blender if it's gazpacho, and the tomatoes are just overwhelming the market right now. So I would have all of that. And the thing that I do, and I know a lot of people do this, is when I set up my buffet in advance, or when I set my table, I put markers down that say, chicken, the platter says chicken on it. The bowls, I don't have to say soup in my bowls, but I might say, shredded salad on that bowl. And I put notes in all of my containers and on the places where they go, because otherwise, people start coming into my kitchen. Everyone is well-meaning, but I get overwhelmed. Even those of us who have entertained for many years, it's easy to get overwhelmed and to say, I don't remember what that bowl is for. I have no recollection.
And again, it takes the joy out of it. So anything we can do to not feel overwhelmed is so helpful. So yes.
Exactly. So that would be my key tip. Yeah.
And how do you get in the mood for Rosh Hashanah? What do you do in the week or two beforehand?
Well, I would say that I have a group of friends who I connect with. We often do sort of an informal recipe share. where someone will say, what are you doing for a salad? Or what are you doing for a starter? And someone will say, oh, I have this fantastic recipe. So that happens kind of organically. But I also spend time by myself. And, I'm a big swimmer. I will take walks. I'll spend time, sort of setting an intention that a particular time in the water might be spent really thinking about what I want as the new year begins. And sometimes we speak about it as a family too.
I love that. And it is such a big part of the holiday, the reflective element and the setting exciting intentions for the year ahead. We're actually doing a workshop in a week or two where we're going to I invite you, the listener, and Liz as well. We're going to be meeting on Zoom and setting intentions for the upcoming year together to get you to sort of embody the strong Jewish woman you were born to be, what you want for the upcoming year, and just to bring us all together. It's going to be completely free on Zoom. If anybody's listening and wants to join in with that, it's yourjewishlife.co/Rosh Joy, ROSHJOY. yourjewishlife.co/Rosh Joy. We're all going to meet there, and I'd love everyone listening to join in, because how powerful would that be for us all to sort of connect, be together, reflect on the past year, and set our intentions. So that's going to be fun. That's going to be fun.
It's a very powerful idea. I mean, I think, again, one of the things that I love so much about what you're doing for the Jewish community of women is, eliminating the shoulds and allowing people to share their own inspiration and their own journeys. And, whether you grew up Jewish, and I did, or whether you're new to Judaism, or whether you're learning about Judaism, I think that sharing with as many women, especially as possible, really helps us. So even for someone like myself who has sort of a pattern for Rosh Hashanah, I would love to hear what other people are thinking about, because it sparks new ideas for me. So thank you for that.
It's the power of the community, the power of the group. That's why we have a membership, Smashing Life, which is my third child. It's my community membership club for Jewish women and Jewish women, and it's a sort of, it's a flavor. This Zoom workshop, I hope, is going to be a flavor of, you can see what goes on in the membership, because it's all about the power of the community and how to build the life you want on your terms, empowered by that incredible community of Jewish women. So still on the subject of Rosh Hashanah, what's one new thing that you can recommend that we can do for the holidays, something new?
Well, if you use paper, stop using paper. I would, in an effort to make your kitchen more green, just, use cloth for napkins and for tablecloths. And I would say, and I know this sounds like a big thing, I would say, see if you can research and start to compost food waste in your kitchen. I started composting after thinking about it a lot. I thought about it for way too long because I never really explored any services that were available to me. I just assumed I was going to have to take my food scraps out into my yard, fear for the animals that would be, the foxes and the deer, and now we've even had bear here in Connecticut. Put it into a container, run back in the dark. I'm a little afraid of the dark. I thought that composting meant that I would have to do that and churn it and smell it and worry about, other kinds of little animals. But I started composting, and I'm using a company that I think is a great model. And I think that there are lots and lots of companies that are doing this now, which is they simply pick up your compost once a week. I put it, I have a compost bin on the side of my sink. I put all of my food scraps in there. There's a, sign on the container that tells me what I can put in that container, which I know it pretty well now. And once a night when we take out the garbage, I also take out my compost. Today I took out my compost. I wasn't even cooking for an event, or we were actually away for the whole weekend, and my compost bin, which is huge in my garage, was completely full. It was so heavy that I could barely carry it out to driveway. So if you're trying to contribute in positive ways to the healing of the environment, see if you can compost, because even during normal weeks when you're not cooking for large numbers of people like you do for a holiday, you wouldn't believe how much food waste, scraps, you generate. And so I would suggest that you research if you have some kind of a compost pickup service in your area, and it's worth it.
That's really inspiring. Thank you. You've inspired me with that. And what other tips do you have on being an eco Jew? How can we be Jewish and more eco?
Eco Jew, that's so funny. Well, as I said, I would shop locally and I would shop seasonally so that you're supporting your local farms. And I think that's really one of the most important things that we can do for our food systems across Europe and America, certainly. And see if you can attend some events in your community that give you suggestions for how to help. So whether it's picking up food waste or potential prospective food waste and delivering it to places where people are hungry and they need more food. There's something in well, actually across the whole country now in America called Food Rescue, where they have this simple app on your phone and you sign up and you give them your zip code. You don't give them your address. And it alerts you when there's a pickup to be made, let's say from your local supermarket or from any kind of grocer or a restaurant, a food that's about to be wasted. And it just comes up in the app on your phone and alerts you that there's food to be picked up in one location and to be delivered to the next location. And you can just say, yes, that works for me at that particular time. And because it's such a smart app, it knows exactly where you are. So it doesn't give you a pickup location that's more than, I don't even think it's more than 10 miles from where you are. And the same with the drop off. So I would say, as an eco Jew,
Eco Jews.
which there's someone here in Connecticut called Eco Dude. So it's so funny that you're calling me that. But anyway, I think that contributing to the environment in small and large ways like that I think it's incumbent upon all of us, Jewish or not.
And, how does your Jewish identity inspire your commitment to sustainability? It's obviously a huge for you, this commitment to sustainability. Is it connected to your Jewish identity?
Well, I think I just come by it naturally. Actually, my mother shopped at a local farm stand. I was aware of the food coming in on trucks from farms that were probably 2 hours away. And I've always just been very connected to nature. I think, I went to Jewish summer camp, and the values of connecting to kindness to the land, allowing the land to recover after it's been planted, kindness to animals. I think it's very much a part of Jewish values. And I think that is sort of permeated in subtle ways for me over my lifetime.
So I'd like to hear more about your life, your Jewish life growing up. How did Judaism play a role in your life growing up?
Well, we celebrated all of the Jewish holidays. My mother lit Shabbat candles. I went to Jewish summer camp, but I went to Jewish summer camp a little bit later. I was probably 12 when I went, and it's called Camp Ramah, and it's all over this country. And there was a great and I think very, very smart way that they integrated Hebrew language into the camp experience. So little did I know that I would marry an Israeli man and that I would need Hebrew to communicate with his parents who don't speak English. But I would say that Judaism just was very much a part of our lifestyle.
Yes, it was just there, and it was part of your identity. And
Mm-hmm.
do you think it led you to, I mean, did you have an interest in Jewish food and cooking as a child? Did it lead you to your career and your childhood
In the
directly
Jewish
connected?
food world? Well, interestingly enough, my grandfather was a baker from Poland, and he was trained as a baker when he was a child. His father insisted that he do a 3-year apprenticeship, and he left his small village or shtetl to go off and be trained, and he hated it. He hated it very much. The person who was working with him was very abusive, and he escaped, ran away a few times, which his father certainly had no tolerance for. But so I grew up with a lot of Jewish baked goods in my home. But because of that, ironically, my mother never baked because my grandfather brought everything with him almost every Sunday. So I didn't grow up really with learning how to bake. My mother wasn't well when I was a teenager, and I did a lot of basic cooking. It was just simple and easy for me. I watched a little food TV growing up, but no, there wasn't any massive influence. It's just that actually I'm trained as an art historian. And so digging into the symbols and meaning of objects or things that are more than what they appear to be is just a natural inclination for me, I would say. And I love to eat.
Yeah, well, I'm going to talk to you about Jewish food in a minute. We're going to take a quick break. I just want to tell you lovely listeners about something that I absolutely love, and we'll be right back. I wanted to take a moment to tell you about my community, my Jewish community membership club. It's for Jewish and Jewish women all over the world, and I want to tell you about it because you might want to become a member. So it's such a special place. I want you to know what it's all about. In one line, it is everything you've ever wanted in a Jewish community. It's for all Jewish women, whether you are in the process of converting or have converted, or you're a patrilineal Jew, or you're traditional, or you're not so observant, or you call yourself a cultural Jew or a traditional Jew, or whatever it is. In fact, we are just not about labels at all. As long as you've got a connection to Judaism and you're ready to build the life you want on your terms, you're ready for Smashing Life. It is a place to share Jewish culture and joy, a place to connect with like-minded Jewish women. It's a place to live your Jewish life your way, what the podcast says on the tin. I want you to live that with us, empowered by the community. And obviously inside the community, you're going to learn beautiful, modern and traditional Jewish rituals that will fill your life with purpose. You're going to advance in your life and career, and we make it so much fun. It is a joyful place. It's a place to nourish your own personal development while connecting with other like-minded Jewish women around the corner from you and across the globe. And we have all kinds of ways of facilitating connection. You'll never feel like the new kid inside Smashing Life. You'll be immediately welcomed and supported and loved. There is so much warmth in there. It is this beautiful, safe, non-judgmental space. And like I say, we have a lot of fun. We do so many things. We have plenty of social events, both online and in real life. We have meetups all over the world, but a lot of it is online if you live somewhere remote, or you just fancy staying in your pajamas for the day, but you want to hang out with your fellow Smashing Lifers. We do lots of fun social events. You'll access a community of ready-made, like-minded Jewish friends, again, both local and international. There's so much thought goes into our monthly programming. We have expert masterclasses chosen by you. We have all kinds of fun things going on, like weekly yoga and a book club and crafts club. We have a member generated recipe book where everyone shares their recipes, and we have this gorgeous recipe book for you to flick through. It's online, flick through virtually and find the recipe book that you want. We do have a grand plan to publish it and make it into a wonderful cookbook that we can sell for charity. But right now it's a virtual members only Smashing Life Jewish cookbook. It's wonderful. We have great Jewish bake-offs. We have modern Jewish life experts coming in to share ideas that are going to inspire us and fill our lives with purpose. We do virtual Shabbats, masterclasses. We have plenty of members only discounts and gifts, and we add new ones every month. It's a place for accountability and support when you need it. It's an environment of opportunity and Jewish values. And I would love you to join in and experience it. I'm just going to tell you a little bit about what Ashley, one of our members, says about it. So I want you to hear it in our members' words. She says, Smashing Life is an absolutely magical community that provides connections to kind and supportive Jewish friends all over the world. Masterclasses to help guide us with life hacks, accountability partnering, yummy recipes, twice weekly Zoom yoga sessions and Zoom get-togethers and in-person get-togethers too. And we are close enough to share our life milestones and victories, and vulnerable and safe enough to share our defeats and low points. And we receive an incredible amount of genuine support for each high point, low point, and everywhere in between. Join Smashing Life for year-round awesomeness, warmth, support, fun, life hacks and resources. Oh, we love you, Ashley. If you're listening to this and you fancy joining Smashing Life, all you need to do is head to smashinglife.club and add your name and email address to the waitlist. That's smashinglife.club, CLUB, and add your name to the waitlist, and you'll get an email just as soon as a space becomes available and our doors are open to welcome you in. So if you are ready for connections and friendships that will last a lifetime, if you're ready to advance in every area of your life, and of course, if you're ready to build a life you want on your terms and be part of a group of Jewish women to connect, engage, and share life struggles and triumphs with, you are definitely ready for Smashing Life. So Liz, gotta ask you, what's your favorite Jewish food?
My favorite Jewish food. Well, that's a tough one. Well, I really love apple cake. I don't know that we can call that a Jewish food, but I associate it with, the cake that must be at my Rosh Hashanah table. I just love a moist apple cake. And for us, that means making sure that it's parve or dairy free. So it's an oil-based cake rather than a butter cake. I don't use margarine because I think it's scary. I really love gefilte fish. I really do love gefilte fish.
Oh
and
my God.
I know it's
I'm
tricky.
about to bow out of the episode because I'm thinking about the smell of, it is really like the Marmite of the Jewish world. It's like, in fact, let's do a poll on Instagram. I want you guys to tell me, DM your Jewish life. Do you love gefilte fish? Or can use that word, hate? Oh my God, that's too strong a word. Or did you dislike gefilte fish?
Right.
I can't deal with it, but you absolutely love it.
I love it. And then these are all the really traditional foods. Like I love a dairy kugel, a kugel that is completely laden with the heavy duty stuff, fatty stuff, sour cream, cottage cheese, lots of eggs, and lots of noodles, or lakshan as we called it growing up. I grew up with it being called lakshan kugel. Lakshan means noodles. So I love stuff like that, but I really don't make those things other than for holidays, because a lot of these things, they don't reflect our growing environment, the environment where things are grown. They reflect tradition, and that's very beautiful, but most of them are kind of heavy and fattening.
Have you tried to kind of bring it up to date, to blend your love of those foods with your love for farm to table? And
I did a fresh strawberry kugel last summer or a couple of summers ago that was really delicious and people loved it. I grew up with like a dairy kugel with canned peaches. Did you have that growing up, the canned peaches thing?
So my mom is Sephardi, so they would have no kugel and no canned peaches. But my dad's Ashkenazi, so I did have a little influence there. But the food was not. No, we didn't. Is the short answer.
Right. So I've done that. I've done seasonal kugels. I'm doing a brisket taco for the holiday.
I love that. Brisket taco
with pickled onions. So that's, would I call that updated? I would just call it a new way.
I love it. My next question to you was going to be, what does your Jewish life, your way mean to you? And that's kind of a brilliant example. It's taking brisket to be fitting into your life today. But what does your Jewish life your way mean to you, Liz?
Oh, it is such a great question. Thank you. I would say that it means really respecting the growing environment, the earth around us. I think that that really is the thing that guides us. It guides us in the kitchen. It guides us as we're planning a wedding now for my daughter. It guides us as we're planning a wedding. It guides us. I have a Shabbat dinner group. It guides all of us, my whole group, which is really fantastic. There are 12 of us. It guides us as we plan our get-togethers. So I would say my way is a way that I hope lots of people are thinking, which is respecting the environment and helping to heal the environment and heal the world around us in everything we do.
So your daughter Ilana, she's actually in my brides club. We love her. But how exciting that you're planning a wedding. For anyone that doesn't know, I'm also the founder of Smashing the Glass, which actually came before the whole Your Jewish Life brand, but it's our sister brand, Smashing the Glass, and we have a membership for brides called Brides Club, and Ilana is one of our gorgeous members. But how is it for you planning the wedding? And yeah, it's going to be sustainable and eco.
Well, we're going to try. Yes, I know she's part of your club, and I knew about your club way before she did because I've been following you and all the incredible things that you've been doing. You're really one of the most creative people I know.
Oh, thank you.
So yeah, that brides club is really fantastic because you show such an array of different types of people and weddings and ideas. I love that.
Well, it's what inspired the Your Jewish Life Your Way message, because Smashing the Glass is all about your Jewish wedding your way. You know, there's so many beautiful traditions, but make them your own and stamp your individuality on your wedding. That's what inspired Smashing the Glass. And then this brand was built upon that, Your Jewish Life Your Way. So Ilana, and you'll be thrilled to hear that our next resource dropping in Brides Club, literally any day now, is funny enough our best tips for planning an eco wedding. So that's that's really amazing. But tell us about your wedding. I want to hear about your wedding as well.
Okay. Well, the first thing is that I've really retrained myself. It's not my wedding. It's their wedding.
It is absolutely. No, and when I say your wedding, I literally mean your actual wedding. Your wedding.
My wedding?
Yes, your wedding. Liz's wedding.
I don't know. My mother planned our wedding. I had absolutely nothing to do with it.
Seriously? See, I would never hear those words from any of our brides women, and I would be terrified if I did hear it in this day and age. That's fascinating.
I was 22 years old and my husband was 25. He was post-Israeli army. There was a whole level of formality and I would say expenditure that was really, how do I say it? It was really shocking to us. And I was so young, I just didn't have any opinions. I was just busy finishing up my degree at university. I was very young and I didn't really have any opinions. It just happened and it was a really fun party. But in contrast, now I love that the brides are really fully involved and driving the force.
And the grooms, we see
and the groom, yeah. And you know, you're speaking about eco weddings. I will tell you that, you know, because I'm very active on Instagram, I get to and I see a lot of the thing. Obviously, I follow you, so I found things that are connected to weddings and wedding waste. And I found someone who I think was starting in another city, not New York City, and they do pickup of flowers.
That's right.
And they will transport the flowers to a site, disassemble them, reassemble them in smaller arrangements and deliver them to area hospitals. You probably know about this.
Yes, absolutely. We know about this and we recommend it. Yeah, it's fantastic.
So that's one of the things, that kind of thing that I think is very important, so that, you know, all of that money and all of that effort and all of that beauty doesn't go in the waste bin. And if it did, I would really hope it was composted.
Yeah.
We haven't chosen a caterer yet. We're very lucky. We're Ilana's getting married at the New York Botanical Gardens, and they have a
Oh, it's beautiful. Wow. Oh my
really
goodness,
beautiful,
dream venue. Yeah.
really beautiful. And they're very accustomed to doing kosher weddings, and they have, I think, 4 or 5 kosher caterers for us to choose from. And their practices, not just their food, but their practices, their waste practices and their sourcing practices is going to be top of mind for both of us. She very much feels
Absolutely.
that way. Yeah.
Absolutely. No. And that's why, we've produced this guide as well. It is front of mind for couples, and vendors need to be getting their acts together. And I'm sure they are. What we'll do in the show notes, because everybody's now going to want to know about this venue, is we've featured some weddings on Smashing the Glass previously at the Botanical Gardens. So I'll link to them in the show notes so people can get a flavor of the venue. For anyone that's kind of confused as to why I know so much about weddings, and this is a lifestyle podcast, my background is when I got engaged. In a nutshell, actually episode 1 is all about my story if you want to hear about it in depth. But I got engaged, realized there was no one place as a sort of modern go-getting Jewish woman to feel inspired or get advice or guidance on Jewish weddings. So I started a small blog called smashingtheglass.com, and it grew very quickly. And years later, we've taken over the world, basically. I'll be my own pushy stage mother here today. And then this lifestyle brand, which is my absolute passion and purpose now, was built sort of alongside it, but after it. So that's the basis. So yeah, life happens.
Well, I need to go back and listen to your first episode then. I will say that I've been really blown away by the breadth of information and inspiration, but a lot of practical suggestions and resources. You are just really helping brides, and definitely on this podcast, also helping just Jewish women with hands-on resources, things that we can click into and really find some answers and inspiration. Inspiration is just as important. I mean, really, it's the root of everything we do, isn't it?
Absolutely. And we have now our Brides Club for brides. We have Smashing Life, the membership for anyone, any Jewish women that want to lean into their identity in a fun, supportive community. And we're also all about, a lot of the ideas that you were talking about. It's just about giving people ideas. They'll latch onto 1, 2, 3 things, and they run away with it and make them your own. And I love that you've lent into this, in later life, when you contrast where you were when you got married, and what inspired your journey. How have you? What's the story of Kosher Like Me? How did you get to where you are today?
Oh, it's a great story. So we live in Connecticut, about an hour from New York City, and my husband was commuting to New York City while I was doing a lot of volunteer work in this community, especially in the arts. And when our youngest went off to college, we decided that it would be fun to have an apartment in the city, not just for the fun of it, but to reduce the commute, which is over an hour long. And unlike most people in our community, we had never lived in New York City. We came from Boston, where we had met at university. So we moved into the city part-time, and we had a schedule. We went in on Mondays and we came out on Thursdays. And people would say to me, so how do you know where to eat? Because there's so many fantastic restaurants, and you keep kosher, but how do you keep kosher? And what does that mean for you? And I said, and then we would talk about it, and I would say, well, I kind of keep kosher like my grandparents did, which is that my home is kosher and I eat fish and veg when I'm away from my kosher kitchen. And then they would say, oh, I'm kosher like you. And I would say, wait a minute, you're kosher like me? And
I love
that's kind of how it started. So we were going out to eat a lot, and I really enjoyed writing about restaurants and writing about restaurants that had a lot of vegetarian fare, even if they weren't vegetarian. And for example, if there were certain restaurants that always had a vegetarian-based soup on the menu, and you didn't have to, pick apart every dish. So I was writing about restaurants, and then I realized that was really not going to be the thing that people were never going to find me that way. So I started doing more recipes and taking photographs and interviewing small producers and going to more farmers markets to help build ideas that were seasonal. And, it's been about 12 years, and there's a very strong Jewish food community in the country, but certainly in the New York area. And it's been a very supportive community. We've had writers' conferences and retreats and all sorts of things. So, I think it's the kind of community of Jewish food writers where if you need something, you really can ping someone and say, hey, I'm desperate for whatever it is, a photographer, a recipe, an idea, the proper cookbook. And we've gotten to know each other. And it's become more inclusive, of course, with Instagram and, social being what it is now. So it's been a very interesting and exciting ride.
So you're obviously very passionate about all this, and this journey and where you are now. But is it what gives you purpose as well? It's with all the sustainability element. Is it passion to purpose almost?
Yeah, I would say so, because a lot of Jewish food writers write just about food, and the writing is in many cases inspiring and incredible and very creative. But for me, I really like the weaving together of seasonal and local and Jewish life, and kosher like me, keeping of kosher. So for me, it is really a purpose, because I want people to be thinking, hey, it's Rosh Hashanah, what's in the market? Or it's Pesach, what are we going to eat for Passover when, really what's coming up and in the grounds could just be onions. Well, what are we going to do then? So I really, Sukkot, let's make sure that we're supporting our farmers and using exactly what's grown, in some cases 5 or 10 miles from where we live. So yeah, it is my purpose, I guess.
And what tips do you have for people that live like right in the city? Obviously me in London, we've got loads of our audience in New York City and across America and across the world, but in big, in inverted commas, dirty cities. What tips do you have for being an eco-Jew, sustainable food, all the stuff we've covered, if they're not in a sort of more rural area?
Right. Well, when you're eating out, it would be great to know where the food is coming from. So if if you love a restaurant or you're considering going to a restaurant, check out what they're saying on social media. If they're, touting the fact that they've picked up, a ton of eggplant from the market that week, it means that they're supporting local farmers. So I would say supporting restaurants that are sourcing food properly is a really great way to connect with local food. If you can shop your farmer's market, it's a great way to do it. People always say to me, it's more expensive. And I always will argue back that when I buy a plastic container of greens at my local Whole Foods market, after I take off that top layer, it's almost always gunky or rotten on the bottom. So I will argue that if you can shop at your farmer's market and you can put your hand on and look at, or ask your farmer, if you're not handling the food because of COVID now, if you can ask them to just show you that head of lettuce, I will argue that it will be more economical because it's fresher, because it will last much longer in your fridge if you take care of it properly. So I would say most restaurants that are supporting small farms are really pushing that out in their social media. So I would say take a look for that.
There's also so many, it's not quite as eco-friendly as shopping at your farmer's market, but if you're very time poor, there's so many subscription services that once a week they'll drop on your doorstep a box of fresh, random fruit and vegetables, and it's farm fresh, and you get to get really creative and come up with some fun recipes, maybe using a vegetable that you've never tried before. So there's all kinds of ways.
I love that model. I think the CSA model is fantastic. And if you can add on to whatever their basic is, by ordering their eggs or whatever their add-ons are, I think it's a great way to support local. And as you said, there's either a local pickup, a depot for that, or it can be delivered. And if you're working full time and you don't have time to do all of this, see if you can have it delivered. And maybe you don't have it delivered weekly. Maybe you have it delivered twice monthly, and maybe that's what's more comfortable for you economically, but it will change the way you cook. It will inspire you.
So we're going to wrap up the episode with, and I think we should wrap it up with Rosh Hashanah, something to do with Rosh Hashanah. So tell me your favorite Rosh Hashanah tradition to inspire everyone.
Okay, I would say that my favorite Rosh Hashanah tradition is going to synagogue, going to services together as a family. And, that feeling that I have when we're all getting dressed, let's say at my home, and people, descend into always the kitchen or the living room, and everyone looks sparkling clean and fresh, and we head off, and there's this feeling of something big is about to happen. And then we go to services, and our services are very relaxed, and it gives us plenty of time to do reading and to contemplate. So aside from a great holiday meal and hopefully good weather so that we can eat outside, I would say that's my favorite.
And my favorite tradition, since I've had kids, my girls are age 6 and 7, we love baking challah together, the special round challah for Rosh Hashanah. And, I'm quite time poor. I don't have time to bake challah every week, much as I'd love to. So that's what makes, our Rosh Hashanah special. And the kids are so proud of that challah. And it is special family time. And of course, it tastes, whatever they put in it, it tastes like the best challah ever because it's made with love.
That's right. And those memories will be with them forever and ever. And for you too.
Oh, thank you. So just a reminder to everybody to join. We'd love you to join Your Jewish Life's free New Year Joy Workshop. It's happening just after Rosh Hashanah, after the craziness of the holidays. We're going to meet on Zoom. We're going to reflect on the past year together as a group. Let's all get together, set our intentions for the upcoming year, and let's embody the strong Jewish woman you're born to be, ready for a fantastic upcoming year. Liz, it's been the greatest pleasure having you on the episode today, and how wonderful to prepare for the Chag together. It's a real honor.
Thank you. It's really been my honor. Thank you for asking me to join you. And I can't wait to listen to all of the podcasts. I see that you have an amazing lineup, and I can't wait to listen to these special women in conversation with you.
Well, Chag Sameach, Shana Tova, Liz. And
Chag
to everybody
Sameach.
listening.
Shana Tova.
Shana
Bye.
Tova. I'm so excited to invite you to my live workshop. It's going to be on Zoom. It's a brand new workshop called the New You in 5782 workshop. It's going to be a one-off event to become the successful Jewish woman you were born to be. And it's all about seizing the momentum of the coming year, 5782, and taking achievable, positive steps towards the life that you want on your terms with Jewish values. We're going to get together, all of us on Zoom, so hundreds of like-minded Jewish and Jewish women. We're going to gather together on Zoom just after Rosh Hashanah for 90 minutes, and together we're going to set achievable goals that align with your values. We're going to be setting them as intentions together, so it's going to be really fun. There's going to be dancing breaks, there's going to be laughter, but there's also going to be lots of learning and lots of breakthrough moments. So I invite you to join me for the New You in 5782 workshop. You'll leave with a plan for the coming year that's actually gonna happen. I want you to put an end to the cycle of making promises to yourself that you never follow through on. And believe me, we all do that. It's we have the momentum, we want to set things, we want to make things happen, but we don't always follow through. So let's put an end to that. Let's get together, let's hang out, hundreds of Jewish women together and me, all of us together on Zoom, and let's do this for the new you in 5782 workshop. Just head to yourjewishlife.co/roshjoy to save your space. It is free, it's totally free, but you have to register. So go to yourjewishlife.co/roshjoy. That's yourjewishlife.co/roshjoy, ROSHJOY.